line. Bad bitches, every city in my tribe. Look behind. Booty dominate.
Oh, the one in the comments.
Hey there, ladies.
Hello.
So, Kenzie, I've been like off and on, like watching your live here and there, and like I just want to apologize for some of the men. I'm just really sad that like you haven't gotten some higher level of intelligence to have conversations and just normal debates and not be so aggressive.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we can just go down the line or whatever. For me, I'm just gonna say like I have my own opinions and like how I feel about things, but I'm not somebody that believes that I have the right to push to tell somebody how to believe and think or whatnot. So, but I've been noticing a lot of the pro-choice and stuff like that. And I see the bickering back and forth, like, and it's just like really aggressive and angry. And I think we're actually in the best point in history where our government should be able to have a layup on this and put legislation that covers that gets the majority of people happy, because I think they're saying like I think like the statistics is like 10% of people are 100% no abortion at all, and there's like 10% of people that are like abortion all the way up till 9 months or whatever. So like there's two extremes, but that means that there's this vast majority of people that are 100% ready to make this decision, but our government seems like they would rather us just continue to debate and argue about this. So I personally am, pro-life with exceptions, but I'm 100% also pro-American, pro-American government, like the way our government's supposed to work, not how it's been working, basically, where the people can compromise and create something that is beneficial or works for the majority. Does that make sense?
I mean, yes and no.
I mean, I don't think regardless of whatever I feel or you feel, at some point it
Should
has to be
abortion be
done.
legal?
Should it be illegal?
No, should it be legal?
Should it be in certain cases?
What
That's
cases?
my own opinion. For like the health of the mom, like great, certain things like that. But, that's just my own personal opinion. I'm not trying to change anybody's opinion or anything like that. So,
Right, but this is what you want to see in legislation. And if you continue to perpetuate these ideas, then other people will bandwagon on with that, and we'll see that within legislation, which is what we currently are.
80% of
So
people believe
why?
there should be some type of choice.
But you don't.
You see
Well, yeah.
that with the overturning of Roe, do you see that represented in the legislation? Because many states didn't actually get, or people got to vote on that. There was legislators, trigger laws went into place where people didn't actually get a choice.
Yeah, I understand that. Like my biggest problem with Roe v. Wade is that, like, and I'm not leaning on the abortion part of it or the rights, the perceived rights of it. I'm just thinking about like how our government is supposed to work. And even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that Roe v. Wade was unconstitutional, and it would be sooner or later.
Ruth
It would
Bader
be
Ginsburg did
challenged.
not say it was unconstitutional. She said that she didn't like that it revolved around privacy and not women's choice.
Okay. But she said it was going to be challenged. She knew it would be challenged because
She did,
it didn't
because
have a
it
good
wasn't
standing.
explicit within the Constitution.
Right. The rulings were all based off of that current time, and most of the rulings said that it should be readdressed. So, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying
What?
that
What are you talking about? No, like Roe v. Wade was precedent on top of precedent.
it in the rulings of the judges, because it was based off of a time period of like stature. It wasn't even just Roe v. Wade. It was another one that was tied to it where it was talking about 24 weeks or something like that of viability. And they said that that's what it's based on now, but science should readdress this in the future. So they always knew that it was supposed to be readdressed or relooked at, but we never really did until not even recently.
No, no.
They just got rid of it.
All it was referencing in terms of the 24 weeks was that the government could not make legislation um, impeding someone from getting an abortion prior to 24 weeks.
Yeah.
12, the first trimester.
Yeah, what yeah,
It was
I don't know I
24.
don't know the specific
Okay.
numbers, but they in a lot of the judge rulings, I'm not saying that like that was like their rulings were, this should stand until like there was, other precedents that could change it, basically. So they knew it would be like challenged down the
That's
road.
not how, no, that's not how that works.
That what part? What do you mean? I'm confused.
When Supreme Courts make judgments. So essentially, what happened is that a woman sued the state of Texas
Right.
for making legislation that prevented her from getting an abortion. And
Yeah.
the Supreme Court ruled that this legislation was unconstitutional.
Right.
And that was reaffirmed also in Planned Parenthood v. Casey when they began restricting clinics. So again, under privacy within the Constitution, they deemed that reproductive care fell under privacy and that the
Okay.
government did not have the right to intervene when it came
Okay.
to someone's family planning or reproductive care.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I think mostly like where my argument like is, I think we're at the instead of us like, I think there's this big argument where there should be a common ground that could be handled, even if we take men's votes completely out of it. There's enough women that you're going to have to find common ground, and it's going to have to be some type of legislation before anybody finds any happiness in this. Is all I'm saying.
No, I think there can be no legislation.
That
No
that's
one's
not how
forcing anyone to get an abortion. And if you
that's not
don't
how
want an
government
abortion, you don't have to
works.
get one.
But that's not how governments work. And I mean, I
It
understand it. It sounds
absolutely
right,
is.
but that's
But
well, if you're so
it's not
there's
working the way
another
you're
tool.
saying, because more often than not, more people are dissatisfied with this as a whole, because where you live, depending on the state, shouldn't limit what rights you have from state to state.
Yeah, I agree with that, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that that's how legislation changes. I mean, our Congress has a perfect opportunity to make a blanket law across the country where there's a compromise. And I know like you guys don't want to compromise because you want just, full, but like that's just not how governments work. So I'm just saying like what's possible as opposed to, what sounds good.
I don't know why I need to compromise on my rights.
I don't know why you do either, but that's not how governments work.
It is like that is the function, even within a lot of philosophies about how a government should function,
How it
is that
should
there should be
function.
a protection of rights.
Should.
But
But not
again, like
everybody
I don't need
believes.
to make this. I find like I don't really have an interest in this aspect of abortion. I just don't know like
I
why
mean, Roe
you.
was the bare minimum. I
I
mean,
mean, honestly, it was. Yeah.
I mean,
That's
states
a fine
had the
compromise.
flexibility to put a line, and doing this removed any lines. So there's not a standard as a
Like
whole.
we had a compromise and then it was removed. So
But
I just don't
but
understand why you think women should only have access to abortions if they've been assaulted or if they're dying.
that's just my own feelings. I'm but the
Why?
because I don't believe that way. Like I think that
Why?
people should be
This is what I want to argue.
because I believe in accountability, not pro-choice or pro-life. I believe in accountability.
Why can't an abortion be accountability?
It's not though. Both you guys chose something.
Why is
There's
it not
accountability on men
accountability?
and women. There's accountability on men and women that's not taught anymore, basically. So
Why is raising a child, or I don't even think you have the philosophy that they need to raise the child, right? You would be fine if they carried it to term and then gave it up for adoption.
I would rather people have accountability and not lay down with each other unless like they plan on having kids. Like that's how I personally would rather it be.
So
But
I'm done having children. So you're saying I should no longer have sex?
so you're done having children.
Right.
Okay, I mean that's a choice of yours.
Right.
Like,
So
but
should I
when
stop having sex?
a man's done and a woman's done having children, they probably should get fixed.
But I mean, even when it comes to male or female sterility, there's still an option for pregnancy to occur.
If the husband and the wife both get snipped, they can have kids still.
Don't want to get married again either.
Sure. I mean, don't we have the philosophy that, there's not 100% effective manner other than abstinence?
I mean, in
Or
most
let's even
cases,
say that that happens and then I get pregnant. Like, can I have an abortion?
can you have an abortion just because it's convenient to you? I think that's wrong.
Well, no, it's because I don't want to have children and I don't want to be pregnant.
Then you probably could
So,
have done something to make that not happen.
well, I just said we both got sterilized. He got
Okay.
snipped. I got, we'll just say like
Cleaned
I
out.
forget what it's called right now, where they put that thing in your fallopian tube. Let's just say they failed and I got pregnant. Can I have an abortion?
I mean, that's a. I mean, this is. I mean, the one argument I've noticed you do a lot is exceptions to the rule, changes a rule, and whataboutisms. Like, I mean,
That's not a whataboutism. I'm
it
asking you under
is.
your framework if people take what I'm sure you
What
would
if
deem.
something that's almost impossible
That's
happens?
not a whataboutism.
It's just showing it's not a black and white issue. There's gray in everything.
But that doesn't change the rule to the
A
like. That doesn't
whataboutism
change
is
the
when
rule.
we say like, look what Trump did, and then everyone's like, what about Biden? Like that doesn't dispute what Trump did.
You
That's a
literally just
whataboutism.
took a situation that has a astronomical odds, so the baby would be a miracle, and you'd want to kill that thing. It's a miracle.
I wouldn't say it would be a miracle.
It would be a miracle if he got snipped and you got snipped and somehow you guys got pregnant. That's
It
a
was a
miracle.
whoops. It's nuts.
No, that's just like a very low probability that they would have existed, which I think we all can, like we were all a low probability of being in existence. I think it would be a miracle if
Lower
like I
probability.
didn't have sex and got pregnant because that's like obviously outside the physical world.
Yeah, that's Jesus.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, like, well, like you didn't have sex and you got pregnant. I mean,
Right, that's a miracle because again, it's outside something that
right.
happens in the physical
That's
world.
why I said
But two people
that's
having
Jesus.
sex, even if they've been sterilized, we would just obviously say that the sterilization's failed. That's not a miracle. That's what that happens in the physical world. So, but I don't know why you're refusing to answer my question.
What's the
Would I
question?
have access to abortion if we both were sterilized?
I think it's a weird. I mean, I think it's a weird question, but like, I wouldn't want
Because
to
you
do it.
fundamentally recognize that sex is not just for procreation. Which
Yeah,
is why when I said, if I'm done having children, should I still have sex? Like fundamentally, you believe that because it's
yeah.
also for psychological and social reasons.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Are
because it's not just for procreation. And I don't
and
think that because there's this biological outcome that you have an obligation to sustain it.
are you going to try to not have a baby, or are you just gonna just go raw dog?
I don't really think that matters to you because even if I do use protection and I get pregnant, can I have an abortion?
I don't think you should, but I mean, it is what the laws are.
I'm asking you about the law, like what ought to happen. Because in your framework, women should just not have choice
I don't know.
to.
I don't think you should kill something out of your own convenience of life.
I think saying convenience of life is very dismissive of pregnancy because pregnancy, especially against someone's will, I would say is torture. Even when it's with your will, it can be very much torture. There's a lot of
Pregnancy.
sacrifice that goes into pregnancy. And if someone doesn't want to have the risks or the health outcomes of pregnancy, then they should not be forced to sustain it.
Okay. I mean, I think the vast majority of, you know, abortions don't come with these random, scenarios that you come up with that are like to change the exceptions to the rule. Like a lot of people are using it as birth control as opposed to
That's incorrect.
situations. That's not incorrect.
It is incorrect. A majority of abortions are the first time someone's had an abortion.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it's not birth control.
It absolutely does,
That's
because if it
actually
were being used as
counterintuitive.
birth control, then people would be having multiple abortions. We would see that being the overwhelming statistic, and that's not true.
Okay, I mean, I can get behind that.
So no, people are not using it as birth control. And 51% of abortions are due to failed contraceptives.
Okay, well, I mean, again, I'm not trying to change your opinion. I'm saying that we have an opportunity in this country to like
Look, if
to
we
find the
want to
balance.
reduce abortion, I think that's something that everyone can get on board with. I don't think an effective way to reduce abortion is to subjugate and oppress people by making it so that they don't have access to health care. Because we can see, even currently, like within Texas, there's strict abortion laws, which are very fundamentally the same as yours, that women are dying because of this. Women are being denied abortions, which even cause them to have more health issues, which makes them infertile.
Okay.
And if we are going to be on the same page of reducing abortions, I would argue that that would be public funding of long-acting reversible contraceptives, such as IUDs. I would argue that would be comprehensive sex education, K through 12, that would be a UBI, government-funded daycare, paid parental leave. Those would be things that
So those
actually
are
would
all
give
those are,
people more options.
so you're okay with legislation as long as it's like that, but not with finding a common ground
That
where
is the common ground. The
where
common
the
ground is we
majority of
want to reduce
Americans
abortion. What is the best way to do that? It's through pragmatic policies.
in teaching accountability.
I don't think sustaining pregnancy or having a child is being accountable if those are things you don't want to do. That seems silly to me.
Well, no, what I'm saying is like I was in another chat where the lady was like, "Well, what about the guys that continually get, women pregnant? What do we do with them?" Well, there's accountability. Like, why did like don't lay down with shitty people, male or female, if you don't want to
Well,
have a
I don't
potential of having
really
a
think
pregnant.
like you understand the reality of abortion. Because if we look at statistics, 68% of people who get abortions are already mothers.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I appreciate that and
Yeah.
information.
And then if we also look at people who get abortions, they're predominantly in long-term committed relationships because it's not the amount of partners that relates to you getting pregnant, it's your frequency of having sex. And people who are in long-term committed relationships are more likely to be having a higher volume of sex than people who might even be polyamorous or, just sluts.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I can be honest. I don't know like the ins and outs of it. I just would rather us not have this continual argument forever and our government to
Well, that's the thing
find a
is you keep
way.
seeing accountability, you keep seeing compromise, but the stats are that across the board, having access at some reasonable rate, which Roe was the compromise. That was what it is, and it always seems to fall back on the women or feminine presenting people, and it's less on men. I see that. Do you still live in Utah?
Yeah, I'm not from here.
Okay. So,
I
I
don't
mean,
claim.
I lived in Utah for a couple of years. It's
I
very
don't claim it.
patriarchal. It's a different standard. Women are not seen as equal. So it's that it's not a compromise. We shouldn't have to compromise about what is okay to how to live our lives. Because more often than not, and anecdotally, I've seen so many men who just bail and aren't part of their kids' lives.
Yeah.
And the women are, they have the children and they're just left holding the bag. So this compromise, so we're not arguing. it affects more than just your life. It's your everything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's I don't think we should compromise on our rights.
Well, and like I said, like I understand that, and I fully agree. Like, but that's just not how. Like, I mean, everything sounds good in practice, but like in reality, what's going to have to happen? Instead of just like pushing that off and saying like, well, we don't want that to happen, so let's not worry about it. Like, this is what's really going to have to happen. Sooner or later, there's going to have to be legislation
We
because
can't
that's just how
legislate
our government.
accountability.
Well, and yeah, I know you can't legislate accountability, but the vast majority of American like people are pro-choice at some level. Like even you have a time period of where it should cut off, right?
Well, I think that anyone has the right to terminate pregnancy at any time. I think after 24 weeks, obviously the life of the fetus should be prioritized and they should go through non-lethal abortions.
I don't know what's that mean. I know like somebody tried to explain it to me like
Where the
there's
pregnancy is terminated, but the fetus survives.
okay. So, and I think if more people understood that even concept, like that would really help. So like what happens to the baby then if it survives at whatever time period you just said? Like just kind of educate me a little bit, please.
In terms of what?
Like so if they terminate it but the fetus survives, what happens to the fetus?
I mean, the same thing that happens when a fetus is born. Either the parent chooses to take on the parental obligation or it's put up for adoption.
So
But I
okay.
do think ultimately, like, infant adoption should be very rare. If you want, like, again, I feel what I have presented to you is the compromise. Because fundamentally, if we look at when women asked, like, were asked, why did you have an abortion?
Hmm.
47% said it was either due to the ability not to be able to provide financially or a low supportive system. Either they
Okay.
didn't have family or their partner was not involved. So if we can create a structure to where they have access to support and they have
Mhm.
access to money, then they would have made a different choice. So now we've created another choice for them. So
Okay.
again, we can get on board with reducing abortions,
Hmm.
but the compromise that I'm not willing to make is forcing someone to sustain pregnancy against their will. That is unreasonable, and I don't think that people should be tortured in order for what you say to be accountable.
Oh, I mean, okay. I mean, I don't like. I don't know. Like, I don't see like we're having an argument. I'm kind of learning a little bit here, but I'm just giving you my opinion and like how I feel about. I'm not
Well,
trying to
tell
like
me why you think it's ethical to force someone to sustain pregnancy against their will.
why I think it's ethical to sustain pregnancy against their will.
To force someone to sustain pregnancy against their will.
Well, I guess that's kind of a tough. Never like it's never been presented to me like that. So I appreciate that,
Sure.
Kenzie.
No.
Um, I don't know. I guess like forcing somebody in any aspect is obviously not ethical. It's kind of level of slavery, obviously. So
Think
and
about it in a way, and hypothetically, if there was an abusive relationship,
mhm.
and if the man in the relationship didn't want her to leave, and that wasn't an available access, if you had someone, if you got someone pregnant, you couldn't leave. It's abuse,
Well, yeah, yeah,
even
okay.
by the UN.
Well,
Forced pregnancy is abuse.
the number one cause of death, the number one cause of maternal mortality rate is domestic violence, is
Mhm.
murder essentially. So more pregnant women are unalived um, than they die due to health complications,
Okay. Like,
and 1 in 6 women who are abused, their abuse began during pregnancy. So again, it's really important for them to have access to these services because we don't know the circumstances for everyone's
yeah,
situation.
those services sound like, like really great, concepts for, for like, yeah, what you said, like like I do like the concept of reducing abortions because people have more like, I mean, and there are a lot of avenues in like local churches and stuff like that to help people, but I know not everybody follows
Not
that
really.
way. My church here is actually very good with a lot of that stuff. They help pay people's bills. They give you free food and baby
Are you
supplies.
It's not
LDS?
enough. It's
No,
not
I'm
enough.
not. I'm not LDS. No, they pay for the doctor's bills and everything. So,
It's not
um,
enough.
I mean, and even as some do, it's promoting this. It
but
may
I
at
mean,
the
it's
time,
trying to help. Is it not trying
taking,
to help?
I mean, taking time from, I mean, your whole body changes. I mean, it's not like you just go to the bathroom, um, and it's gone. Your whole body makeup changes after pregnancy.
I
Yeah.
think the thing with the church is that it can be highly coercive because many churches are anti-abortion. So I think there is like also this pressure to sustain pregnancy and take on motherhood because it's like within their moral framework. And I mean, I don't want to get too much into churches because like ultimately, like if churches could cure homelessness or could solve for homelessness and it doesn't. So,
So,
um,
so could the government.
I
So
agree.
could,
I agree. Like,
so could all
yes,
of us. I mean,
capitalism is the issue, 100%. And churches take on just as much the benefit of capitalism as the government does.
do
But
you
I don't
know
want to
that?
get sidetracked.
Yeah. Do you know that like original premise of capitalism has been changed from what it was supposed to be in our country?
No.
So the original premise of like why capitalism was the main, focus was there. You weren't allowed to have more than one type of business. You couldn't monopolize, no, monopolize like an area, and you could like your business could only sustain for 30 years before you had to revamp it or restart it. And our government actually put that in place so that there wasn't what we have now today. So it's a capitalism gone run amok and laws changed from what we originally wanted this country to look like in the original constitution, in the original way that our
The
forefathers.
Constitution doesn't reflect anything in regards of capitalism. And again, I don't hail the Constitution as the Holy Grail because
Mhm.
the people who wrote it obviously owned slaves
You know, every
and were
every
exploiting their labor in the name of capitalism. So
American Indians own slaves, blacks own slaves, like everybody, like a lot of people own
I
slaves.
don't know why,
Yeah,
right? Does that make it
yeah.
okay?
No, I'm not saying it makes it
I didn't
okay.
say anything about race.
But we
Like
also
equal.
eradicated, that as well over time. I mean, it just took time for societies to realize how wrong it was. I mean, our founding fathers wanted to buy all the slaves and send them back to Africa originally, but that was shot down because they're like, well, these slaves have never lived in Africa. They don't even know where their family are. And so that was actually one thing that got shot down when the government was gonna buy all the slaves and send them back, like at the beginning of it all. So
What is your point?
I I don't know. I just kind of went off on something. I kind of agree
Right.
with you.
So again, I just said I don't uphold the Constitution as the Holy Grail because the people who wrote it owned slaves. So it's obvious to me that when it's coming to rights, they were doing the rights of certain people. These were white men who were constructing the rights of our country. And I would honestly say our system very much emulates Europe. Like we are an extension of European colonialism to a T. They have exploited the global south, so has America. I mean, I don't,
I mean,
what
but
are you
every
arguing?
every every country would if they could. So I mean, I don't like every society has every. So I mean, I don't understand why we're
I
the
don't know
evil
why you're
ones.
saying that as some sort of justification.
I'm not saying
Are
this.
you like into like American exceptionalism?
In what aspect?
Do you think America is like an exceptional country that we are like what other countries should strive for?
In some aspects, no.
In what aspect should?
I mean, like how like that's well. So the way our country was originally set up and how it's supposed to be ran, as opposed to being how it's being ran now. So
What's that mean?
where the government was supposed to just be there to handle conflicts and not to do like get into our rights and stuff like that. Let us live our
So
lives and pursue
at
happiness.
the time that America was developing and the people in charge had slaves,
Hmm.
that's what countries should aspire to.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Like we were originally
Is
set up
is
as a
America
republic.
the good or the bad place?
We were originally set up as a republic for the people. We're not that anymore.
I disagree with that. Like for some people
For everybody except for slaves.
and women and indigenous tribes
Mm, okay. Okay. Indigenous
and other
tribes were
marginalized other marginalized
indigenous tribes were just like us before we came, so
that's not true.
that is
Jones,
100% true.
I see you. Jones, come on. I see you watching. You
I'm
better be
I'm
close
an
to your phone.
I'm
Please
American
join.
Indian, and my tribe was wiped out by a whole nother tribe to where we had to move 1,000 miles away from our homeland because we were wiped out by another tribe. So, and it's a tribe that's revered every time Thanksgiving comes along. They're like, "Oh, the Cree were such great people. Yeah, they massacred my people, but
What
yeah,
is
okay."
colonialism?
Colonialism is when you come into an area and co-opt it and change it over to the way you think. That's the best I can conceptually say.
Okay. Was America founded because of colonialism?
Was it founded for colonialism?
Did colonialism take place and that's how America was founded?
Yeah. If you conquer an area, you take it over.
Okay. Is that good?
Every society's done it, but no, I don't think it's good. I mean, I think
Okay, so now you're participating in the whataboutisms. Like, what about the Indians who did it? Or what about the indigenous people who did it?
there's no land on this planet that was ever like somebody's and no one ever took it. I mean, that's a weird argument.
It's not a weird argument because we have to acknowledge how America came, America's history.
Okay.
And yes, when it comes to America's history, if I were to sum up America, I would say it is a colonial patriarchal structure founded with the foundation of capitalism, and that these three things are what is causing violence
Why did they cause violence?
because they are rooted in white supremacy, male domination, as well as exploitation.
So white supremacy is inherently, I mean, I'm trying to understand, like, white supremacy is inherently violent, and male domination is inherently violent. Like, I'm trying to understand, like where you're coming from for this. But I've heard you have arguments that men aren't violent by nature.
Correct.
Well, in my own experience, my son is far more violent, and no one has ever taught him to be violent than my daughter is.
I assure you, the conditioning that he's had from his male peers, absolutely.
I am pretty much his only male peer, and I show no violence towards anybody
He
or.
doesn't go to school.
He's only 5.
What do you mean by violent?
He's way more aggressive and angry and hits, and my daughter does not. And they've both been raised the exact same way.
No, they haven't.
Yeah,
Just
they were.
because, no, children do not get the same parents.
I've raised my daughter and my son the exact same way. The male role models in their life have been the exact same, like raised them in the exact same way. We don't show aggression. We don't
So
show.
I would argue that at the age of 5, he's not showing violence. He's just not understanding how to process his emotions.
Okay. So, but my daughter was
So if
raised at
he were
5.
like burning, like killing animals in the woods, I think you would have a problem.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy.
Right.
Or is
So
that
I
like
think I think that's are you making the argument that males are inherently violent?
I think they have a tendency to be more violent than women. Yeah,
Why?
because we're like that's our way. That I mean that's who we are from like the beginning of time for protection and for to have the ability to go and fight off things.
No, I disagree. If we look at it historically, like women have participated just as much in like big game hunting as well as warfare as men. I don't think
Yes.
that men are more capable or more prone to violence than women.
That's the exception to the rule.
It's not the exception, it's the consistent outcome that we've seen. I think
Yeah.
78% of women were big game hunters in pre-modern times.
So they were out there bare hands attacking things with sticks
Yes.
and
Just as much as men. Yes, there was a study released this year that talked
really
about the hunter-gatherer myth that it was based on genders. It wasn't. It was based on skill and ability.
scale and ability. What do you mean? Just like
Essentially, that if you were young and able.
oh, okay. I mean, I've never seen anything along those lines, so I have to just assume that you're correct. So
I'd be happy to cite the study for you.
how can they prove such a thing when there was no documentation of it? Just
There
just
was
a concept.
documentation of it. And then we also have artifacts as well as human remains that show that female skeletons were built with similar hunting tools that male skeletons were. There was also the Berta warrior, who was, I think this is the fourth time I brought them up today, who was buried with two sacrificial horses and surrounded by weapons, was revered as one of the greatest generals of all time, influential, high ranking. Just
Oh, that's
there were
cool.
tons of papers written about them. And then in
That's awesome.
2017, they tested the human remains and found out that they were female.
Okay, that's
And
neat though.
now all of these psychologists were kind of like backtracking. So even like under this patriarchal construction that men are more aggressive, men are more violent, therefore they are more prone to being hunters, protectors, and in war, it's even influencing how we analyze human remains through that patriarchal lens.
Well,
So, and then too, I think if you were to say that men men are innately more violent, then it is all men.
mm, I mean, well, don't they say like men that have more testosterone have higher aggression, or is that just that's just patriarchy?
So when it comes to aggression as well as its relation to testosterone, there was one study that's released that talked about violent prisoners having higher levels of testosterone, but it concluded that the higher levels were due to the unique environment of prison.
Yeah,
And when you're in prison, like obviously you are constantly in survival mode, which can increase certain hormones, as well as like stress, stress-induced reactions within your body.
yeah. That's
But
where
when
the
men
concept
are
toxic
just
masculinity came. Is that study, the toxic masculinity study?
no, toxic masculinity was first coined by a man in the 80s to describe his militant father.
Oh, I thought they came up with it in a study about prisons and why men are more aggressive for shorter for less for like less like getting their foot stepped on or something like that. I thought that was that study.
No.
Okay.
So no, when men are given like testosterone, an increase in testosterone levels, no. Outside of prison, they didn't show any additional increase in aggression.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay.
So I find it so interesting how many men come on here and disagree with me, which is so weird that like all these people are saying that I hate men, yet I think more highly of men than the people that I debate, and that men
do you
are
think I'm like
capable of change to not be continue to perpetuate violence towards women, children, and each other.
oh, yeah, I mean, and honestly, like I'm a whole like where people will put down like quote unquote alpha males because like in my experience, like true alpha males are actually more docile than men that per like
There's no such
per,
thing as an alpha male.
well, okay. So like men, like okay, so like men that people would think would consider alpha male, the social construct of it, like the ones that are like out there saying I'm an alpha male, like they're the ones that normally are more emotional, and the guys that just that people are like, oh, he's an alpha male, and he like they're normally just strong protectors, works on themselves. They don't go out of their way to like cause problems like somebody like if a guy is aggressive and or whatever, people are like, oh, that's an like that guy's an alpha. In my experience, that's not the case. Like they actually have more insecurities than somebody that I would consider an alpha male. Alpha males don't have like the insecurities where they're not as aggressive in those aspects. But that's just my own experience. I'm not saying like that's based off of anything. It's just my own experience of seeing men in different aspects. But I mean, you've already said there's no alpha male, so I mean, that's not really a
Right.
conversation we can have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like,
if you want to read a book, I highly recommend The Will to Change by Bell Hooks
uh-huh.
that talks about men, masculinity, and love.
Okay. I'm not an aggressive, violent, person. I mean, I have been in fights in my life, normally to protect a friend or protect somebody. It's never been something that was my own aggression. But like, so like I do have a hard time saying like I'm not a naturally aggressive person, but I mean, like I mean, a
So
lot of
why do you think a majority of violence is perpetrated by men?
Huh. I think there has a lot more to do with insecurities of not feeling like a man, not feeling like the man they think they should be or what they're supposed to be perpetrated as. And I kind of go back to like men that get into arguments and fights in a bar. They've actually found that the reason that they're at such a high state of like aggression in a bar is because alcohol actually doesn't boost testosterone, actually boosts estrogen. So if a man that's used to having testosterone, he starts getting estrogen, he's going to feel more insecure because he's not feeling like a man at the time. So he's going to be more apt to protect himself because he's in a fight or flight state of like fear because of the extra estrogen in their body. Does that make sense?
Um, I'm sorry. So, are you saying men are more violent because masculinity is so much tied to their identity that when it's taken away, they show violence?
In a lot of cases, I think so.
Okay. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. Why do you think that men exhibit violence when they feel emasculated?
I mean, it's like the dog that gets backed into a corner. It's either going to fight or it's going to flight. And so, if you trigger a man's fight, you know, a lot of
Well,
men are
you must acknowledge that there's not an emasculation version for femininity.
oh, like, yeah, okay, like a woman that she can't feel less. She wouldn't feel
Right,
less.
there's no like uh feminate.
So you don't think a woman can feel more insecure by not presenting feminine when she's used to presenting fully feminine? I think there is a case. I think
I
that's
think
possible.
sure, I think there are ways that women are maybe masculinized. Um,
You don't
but
think, but I mean, would you feel that that woman would feel more insecure not feeling like herself when she is being masculinized, or in just having the insecurity of
My
feeling like
point
not herself.
is that when women are robbed of their femininity or they're
Mhm.
given more masculine, a more, more masculine characterization, that they don't exude violence.
So you think that men are just trained to be aggressive because of the patriarchy? Is that kind of like how you feel?
I think
Or,
violence is very much tied to masculinity.
oh, like it's taught to us.
It's a tenet.
It's a tenet. Is that what you said?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a tenet of masculinity. I think many men revere other men who master the language of violence. I think that there is a lot of male
Yeah,
violence that is condoned.
I
Um,
yeah, I heard you say that, and you used like police and military. I mean, like I think I'd understand better if you were like boxing or MMA and stuff like that, but I revere people in a situation like military or police more, because I hope that they're being more heroic, and that's why I would revere them, not because they're violent. But like I understand, like if
well,
you're like
both of those,
boxing and MMA, like people revere that, and I mean I don't. I think it's kind of weird, but like I understand, like I would understand that more as an example because it's barbaric.
the well, I mean, at least that's consensual. When we look at like police and the military, um, I mean, essentially there is authority is through the force continuum. They are both designed to perpetuate violence to establish their authority. And these men are like very highly regarded in society.
I don't think the police was originally built like that, because like it wasn't, but it has
Yeah, the
become.
police were originally slave catchers.
Okay, but it was reformed to more helping the people, and then it reformed back into more militant like force, where they started wearing all black and stuff like that. So I mean, it has evolved in many
No,
ways.
I don't
But I
think
don't.
that the police were ever designed to serve and protect. I think they were maybe to protect private property, but essentially a designation to by the state to enforce violence upon its citizens and then put them through a
What
system to
what do you
get them to
think? What do you
surrender.
think our society would look like if we never had police officers?
I mean, that's hard to say because I don't know like what other systems would be in place.
We would
But
have to
I am
self
for
police, right?
abolishment of the police
We would have to
and for
self
those.
police ourselves, right?
What do you mean by police?
We would have to. We'd have to assume that everybody just is good by nature at some
I
point,
don't think
right?
that's true. Yeah.
You think everybody's good by nature just naturally?
Mhm. Yep.
So, so where did evil originally come from then?
Well, I don't believe in evil.
Where did bad intentions, like did somebody some point just start teaching people bad intentions?
I think that came through the stress of surviving, where people went to really justify any means. We can justify a lot of things through survival. Um, like we justify self-defense because we are in survival mode, which is essentially an extension of violence.
Mhm.
But now I think we are within a society where we have the production, the means of production to provide um, the basic needs for everybody and to really put ourselves into a position to free ourselves from labor and to have a higher level of human experience to where we can have communities where violence is very, very rare.
Did you
Uh,
ever did you ever see or hear of the study of the mouse utopia?
no.
So what they did is they created a mouse utopia where they had all the comforts any mouse could ever want, food, like everything. And and at first it worked exactly how you think of this, like you see this utopia world working. And over time, they became incredibly lazy. The women stopped, the females stopped finding the men basically attractive because they had no drive. They had no like aspect of life. They started attacking each other, eating each other. They started fornicating, and they started becoming like gay, and they started becoming like, and it completely destroyed like they all died. They all stopped eating. Like they all died. Like they had everything they could possibly want.
Did you expect them to like build buildings and like start sewing clothes and then
No,
to like hold
but wouldn't you
elections?
expect them to just be happy with
I'm
having
just
everything they
asking you, did
wanted?
you have those expectations? Like, should we have expected the
No,
mice to do that? Okay,
no.
great. So
But the
I think we
expectation,
can talk about
but the
in
original
terms of like
expectation,
rationale as
but
well as like our
the original
sentience
expect.
capacity that we aren't equivalent to mice.
But this was shocking because they thought in utopia way, these scientists, they thought in a utopia way, they wanted to prove utopia was even possible. But what they showed is that just in mice, not let alone like human beings, and how like drive is actually very important like to us, that just in mice, when the drive was gone and they didn't have to work for anything, they imploded. And I'm not saying like,
They
but back,
didn't implode, they just turned gay.
no, they all died. They all died. They stopped
After they
eating.
turn, oh my God, being gay leads to death.
No. They stopped eating.
Guys, oh my God,
They
being gay
stopped
leads to
eating and they
stopping
ate
Right,
eating.
themselves.
but
Like
the point is, so
this is just
if
a
you're gonna again
parameter of
make
what
like
happened.
this
I didn't say gay
naturalistic
was a bad
argument
thing.
that one second, if you're gonna make like this naturalistic argument again, I would argue that naturally what we've seen throughout history is that humans worked in short durations of time and then took long periods of rest. And it wasn't until modernization through the invention of the light bulb, as well as I don't know, I can't think right now. The industry, you
Industrial
guys know.
revolution?
Yes, the Industrial Revolution, that we actually saw like people working 40-hour work weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
So, um, I'm not saying that we would free ourselves to where we never have to do anything. I'm saying that we would free ourselves from a majority of labor.
That sounds
To
awesome.
where we had more time to engage in things that actually we found fulfillment in. Because I would just argue work is something that you don't want to do. If you're doing something that you want to do, that's not work. So if someone wants to have a garden and to, pick vegetables, then that's obviously meaningful labor that someone
Mhm.
can enjoy that has actual valuable outcomes within society.
What
But
about the
people
people
working at
that don't?
McDonald's, people working as cashiers, like that's not meaningful labor in the long run.
What about the people that don't want to work at all?
Like
What
the
do you
gay
think they
mice?
want to do?
Sit on their ass and do nothing. There's a lot of
And
people like
what,
that.
stare at the wall?
Play video games, like I don't know, like but
People do that for a living. They make a lot of money. Do you
yeah,
think
well
they're like lazy and
now, but not everybody does.
But
What I'm
I'm
saying
asking
is
you, do you think that those people who play video games and make a lot of money, are they being lazy? Are they living an unfulfilled life?
no, not the ones that are like actually honing a skill and becoming good at it and becoming the best in the world. Like that's
Great.
drive.
So what if someone wants to spend their life doing that? Like, why are you saying that they're not doing nothing?
You just jumped on one exception that I mean, there's a lot of people that don't do
No,
anything.
I put the behavior in a different context.
Well, it was just a random thing I said, and you jumped on that specific thing. I'm just saying there's a lot of people
Right, to show
that are
you that
lazy.
just because someone stays home and plays video games, it does not mean that they're inherently lazy.
I didn't say that at all. It was just that was just one like
You
example
just
that
said they
came
stay
out.
home and do nothing, and then I asked you, do they stare at the wall? And you said they play video
I
games.
go, I don't
Yes,
know.
you wanted that to have a negative connotation.
I play video games. I don't think that's lazy. Like, no, I just, I
What
got one thing out
if
of
you
something
didn't
that
have to
people,
work?
what's that?
What would you do if you didn't have to work?
I don't have to work, but I do.
What would you do if you didn't have to work?
I don't have to work. I choose to
Just
work.
answer
Oh
the
my God.
damn question.
I do everything I want to do. Like, that's my
What
life.
do you do then?
I go hiking. I hang out with friends. I hang out with my kids. I take my kids places.
Great.
Like
So you acknowledge that you have been freed from labor
I
and that
have
you
been.
still do stuff. So I don't know why you're making this categorization that if people are freed from labor, that they wouldn't enjoy life like you do. Do you want people to enjoy life like you do?
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work and drive and work to like get to this point. I don't
That's
think
not the
people should
question.
just get.
Do you want
No,
people to enjoy life like you do?
I don't think
No.
they should unless they earned it.
I see. So you, I feel, have like this very righteous, kind of self-righteous idea of how people should
I
get basic necessities within life.
I think if you work hard, you get what you get out of life. Like I don't think anybody should be given anything. I think everybody should work for what they have.
Why
And
not? Why shouldn't people have the liberty to go hiking, to hang out with their friends, to
they
spend
do.
time with their family? Why is
Who,
this something that they
who says
need
that? Who says
to
they don't?
earn?
Who says they don't have the liberty to do those things? They can go do those things.
Well,
Just
you're
Okay.
saying they
yeah.
shouldn't.
You have a great day, sir. If you're gonna be like bad faith like this, I don't want to talk to you.
But the gay mice, they turned lazy. They're
That made
gay.
me laugh so hard. Like
The
they
ma-
turned
the mice
gay.
didn't have the mice didn't have jobs. They turned gay. The female mice didn't like the men mice. He said.
They were very
Um.
unattractive. Like when he said, what do you say? The female mice found the male mice very unattractive. I'm like, oh, you mean like in today's
No,
world?
the men
Like
mice. The
same,
men
same.
mice.
The men
Yeah.
mice, yes.
I can't wait to be free from labor so I can just become a gay mouse.
I'm so fucking cute, bitch. I'm so fucking cute.